W. Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen.
But every day, the orderlies came back in my room, and every day they put me back in this wheelchair, and every day I went out to the gymnasium at Craig Hospital in Denver, and there Beverly was waiting for me. Beverly was my physical therapist. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that Beverly must have been a Marine Corps drill instructor. It's the only explanation, because she was the meanest, toughest person that I've ever loved. And every day when I arrived at the gymnasium, there was Beverly standing there with her list. She always had her little list on a little notepad, a little clipboard, and it always had the same number. It always had 5 things on it, and she was consistent because every time it was 5 impossible things. It wasn't 5 hard things, it wasn't 5 challenging things, it was impossible things. And every day, at the end of the day, there were 5 less impossible things in my life. But there was one thing that Beverly wanted me to learn how to do, which was stupid. She wanted me to learn how to transfer from the wheelchair onto the couch in the gymnasium. Now that is stupid. I mean, we have to learn how to transfer, right? You have to learn. I mean, people are delighted that I learned how to transfer into the bathtub, for instance, because it really makes me a lot nicer person to be around after I've done that. And obviously transferring onto my bed and into the airplane seat and car seat, all are important things for me to do. But I already had a place to sit. I didn't need to sit on the couch. And the couch transfer is one of the tougher transfers you do, because it's this cushy, squishy thing. There's no resistance when you try to push and lift yourself back into the wheelchair. So I wasn't going to do it, and she couldn't make me. Finally, one day, after a particularly arduous list of 5 impossible things, Beverly came over to me at the end of the afternoon and put her arm around my shoulder and said, "Mitchell, there's one more thing." I said, "I'm not going to do it. You can't make me." She said, "Just calm yourself for a minute. Just try to relax just for 1 minute, Mitchell." And there's something I want you to think about, Mitchell. Have you ever considered the fact that there's probably 2 ways you're going to get close to your future mate? One is going to be next to her in bed. One is going to be sitting next to her on the couch. The couch is probably going to come first. Five minutes. 5 minutes. On the couch, off the couch, on the couch, off the couch. And you know the Olympics are going to be in September, and when you're watching the Olympics and you see the wheelchair couch transfer event, I'll be wearing the gold medal. What do we do to motivate ourselves?
1971, a motorcycle crash left our next guest, and he prefers to be known as W. Mitchell, without fingers and with severe burns to his face. In 1975, while piloting his own plane, a crash landing left him paralyzed and confined to...
It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. Stuff happens. Life happens.
We call this Accident and Miracles, but my next guest could certainly be called Indestructible. This is Mitchell.
I tell people again and again and again that you don't have to use these obstacles as an excuse to stop, to fail. You can use them as an excuse to succeed, to learn a new way to do something. And you don't have to be burned or paralyzed to have big things happen, because a lot of us have big things happen.
Mitchell's life is an example of the title of his book. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it.
After about 2 months, the plastic surgeon came to see me. He wanted to talk to me about my face. He said, Mitchell, literally, your face has been burned off. What did you look like before the fire? Could you describe yourself? Or maybe someone from home could bring in a photograph. And I couldn't remember any pictures from home specifically, but Newlon Shaw, one of my other wonderful nurses, Florence Nightingale-like people, remembered my wallet had survived the fire and dug it out of the drawer. And of course, the doctor rummaged through it, and naturally, the first thing he came across was the license, and he pulled it out, and he looked at it for a moment or two. When he looked up at me one more time, I was really wondering what was in his mind. You probably are aware they don't have mirrors in burn patients' rooms. I hadn't seen myself yet. I had no idea of what I looked like. Finally, he took one last long look at the driver's license. Shook his head and said, God, I know we can do better than this. And they did.
He's known as the man who would not be defeated.
To say that W. Mitchell is an extraordinary man is an understatement. He has looked into corners of the human experience that few of us ever see, and emerged with a vision of life that is full of light, humor, and insight. W. Mitchell proves quite vividly that it doesn't matter what advantages or disadvantages you were born with. It's not the conditions or the externals of your life that will determine your destiny. What matters is what decisions you make about how your life is going to be. The decisions that will write the story of your destiny.
But every day the orderlies put me back in this chair, and every day I went out in the gymnasium in Craig Hospital, and every day I got a little bit stronger. And every day another obstacle became an opportunity. And every day another dark moment at least had a little light shining in. And every day I hated myself a little less. And I loved myself a little more. But every day when I went out in that gymnasium, I watched a young guy, a guy who'd been a mountain climber, an outdoorsman. He had hurt himself climbing, and he would never climb a mountain again. His life was over. He would never race a 10-speed bike again. His life had no purpose. He would never ski the magnificent, unbroken white powder of a Colorado's winter day again. There was no beauty left for him. And after watching him for a particularly long period, one afternoon, I went over to him. And I said, you know something? Before I was paralyzed, there were 10,000 things I could do. Now there are 9,000. Yeah, I could spend the rest of my life dwelling on the 1,000 that I lost, or I can concentrate on the 9,000 that are left. And in my lifetime, if I'm able to do even a few hundred of those things, I'll be one of the most remarkable people on this planet. It's not what happens to you. It's what you choose to do about it that makes all the difference in your life. Life's not easy. Life's not fair. Life's life.
Now, I told a young man in Phoenix not too long ago who was paralyzed that you have a lot to look forward to if you keep looking forward. I see so many people as I travel around the country who have their scars on the inside, who have had a lot of experiences, a lot of tough experiences, people walking around in mental wheelchairs.
Mental wheelchairs.
And I tell people, if you can take responsibility for your life, I don't believe I drove into the laundry truck on purpose. I don't believe I crashed the airplane on purpose and tried to get paralyzed, but they did happen to me. And if I look around for a villain, if I spend my life trying to find somebody else who made it happen to me, instead of taking responsibility for my own life, then I'm always waiting for somebody to make the good stuff happen too. And I am responsible for what happened in my life and what's going to happen in my life.
W. Mitchell has refused to be overcome by 2 life-threatening and life-changing accidents, disastrous events which, if given the power, could have ruled his life to the end.
One day a young woman from Crested Butte called me. She said, Mitchell, I hear from all the people that have been communicating with you that while you're putting on a bright face, you're not doing so good, Mitchell. She said, that's not hard to understand. She said, Mitchell, I wonder whether you remember about a year ago, I had some difficulties in my life, and you told me one day that it's not what happens to you. It's what you do about it. Do you still believe that, Mitchell? Don't you hate it when people do that to you? I mean, that's the worst. That advice was for her. That was good advice for her. Leave me alone. I'm enjoying being miserable. The next morning, when the orderlies came in my room, for the first time, I asked them to lift me out of the bed and put me into this chair.
In addition to Mitchell's work as a TV host, the co-founding chairman of Vermont Castings is a respected author, a commercial pilot, and former vice chair of the National Parks and Conservation Association. Mitchell has been invited to speak to groups in nearly every continent, including countries from South Africa to Singapore, and Germany to Mauritius, as well as almost every state and province in North America. Mitchell shares his message with audiences about breaking down prison walls and learning to take responsibility for change.
You see, somewhere along those streets of San Francisco, I learned one of the most powerful lessons, one of the most powerful tools, one of the most powerful keys that we could ever have in our lives, and it's old, and it's simple, and you've heard it 1,000 times, and some people are prone to say, well, come on, Mitchell, tell us some new stuff. We want a lot of new stuff. You know, we're ready to go. We're hot to trot. Mark Twain said, we can't remember everything we know. We need to be reminded. The lesson that I learned was what you focus on in life is what you get back. What you concentrate on is who you become. It is that simple. Guaranteed success, you make $2 billion in a week? No, I'm not aware of that. Guaranteed that you will be much stronger, much better, much more successful, both personally and professionally, if you put quality in, as opposed to garbage. Money back guarantee. On the island of Molokai, there's a very special peninsula called Kalaupapa. And it's inaccessible, and it was a leper colony, and they literally threw people away there. Threw them away because these people were dying of that disease that no one understood. And they didn't want to be contaminated by it. But there was a Belgian priest named Father Damien who decided to go to Kalaupapa and humanize that place and treat those people like human beings and respond to their needs. Father Damien came there and was surprised by only one thing, not by the misery, not by the inhumanity, not by the lack of care and facilities, but by the fact that there were also some native Hawaiians who had volunteered to go there on their own, no one making them, volunteered to be of service to other people. And he heard a word that he had heard used before, the word kokua, used as a verb, which means to help, used for the first time as a noun. These people were called the kokua. I come to Indianapolis, Indiana today with the incredible, phenomenal opportunity of being allowed to say thank you to you, the kokua, the helpers, the people who are teaching, who are leading in this phenomenal profession, the people who picked me up when I fell down, the people who are teaching others that it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. Thank you.